LA Kings fans are talking about the Kings roster, the start of the regular season, and player moves, and more on this fan feedback edition of Locked On LA Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Kings fans, welcome to Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On LA Kings your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com and win $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. I'm Eddie Garcia, your host of Locked On LA Kings. I've worked in sports media for the past 30 years. Also, one of the co-hosts of Locked On NHL Game Night, a nightly NHL recap show, podcast, and YouTube show that'll be getting underway as soon as the regular season starts. It's here for you every night to wrap up the night in the NHL, and a passionate LA Kings fan for over 30 years. Today is our typical weekly Kings fan feedback show, your opportunity to chime in on anything that's on your mind regarding the LA Kings. It is the voice of the fans that runs this show. So without any further ado, let's get right into it. Our first email comes from Jeff. He's in Torrance, and he says, "Hey, Eddie, so excited for the upcoming season. Was wondering if anyone surprised you positively or negatively from the start of training camp to now. Is there anyone you are worried about or maybe even more excited about now? I'm really excited to see Q make that next step. I hope he is going to have a big season. Thanks for all you do. Go Kings, go." Jeff in Torrance. Well, Jeff, as far as surprise, I think I have to go with Jeff Malott. He played very well in every game he played in. Just solid all around, contributed, put the puck in the net, set up teammates, was physical, just really looked fantastic. Now, granted, he's not a superstar player, but I would say I feel pretty decent about him filling in for Corey Perry in the short term, and I feel pretty good about him being a bottom six fill-in player if injuries pop up here every now and then. So we'll see. He has to do it in the regular season, obviously, but very encouraged and surprised how good Jeff Malott has been in the preseason. I think most of the roster bubble guys, if you want to call them that, Akil Thomas, Andre Lee, Taylor Ward, I thought they all played well. I'm not sure if I was surprised by it, but I didn't think any of them were really subpar. I thought they all did a good job, which again speaks well to the depth of the bottom six type forwards if the Kings need that filled in. I think they've got that covered thoroughly. Alex Turcotte wasn't a bubble guy. He was always going to be on the roster, but I thought that he did a nice job solidifying his role, which I think is going to be the fourth line center. I thought Brant Clark was solid. Samuel Helenius would be the one guy that I was probably a bit disappointed in. He did play better in the last two preseason games. I wouldn't go so far as to say he redeemed himself over how he played in the earlier preseason games, and he wasn't terrible, but I think when you're a young guy and you're fighting for a roster spot, and I don't know, maybe he knew he was always going to make the roster because of his size and his age. And that was probably the case, but you would like to have seen that hunger from him, a young player with a chance to maybe be in the starting lineup if he does everything right. Ultimately, it might not have mattered. Maybe Jeff Malott was always just going to be better than him anyway, but I would have loved to have seen Samuel Helenius make that decision a tougher decision by the coaching staff. He didn't. I thought he kind of helped them make the decision, and Jeff Malott did as well, to his credit. But if there was one little bit of a disappointment, I would say it was probably Samuel Helenius. But again, good to see that he at least came on late. And we'll see. I don't know if he'll play in that final preseason game or not. I think he's played in every preseason game. But I think Jeff Malott would be the big surprise, and Samuel Helenius would be a little bit of a disappointment. I wasn't disappointed in Liam Greentree. If he had really, really shown out, then there was a small chance maybe he'd make the opening night roster, especially once the injury to Corey Perry happened. But once that wasn't the case, once he just was, okay, which was fine, I'm not down on him as far as, him being a future player for the Kings at all because of this, but it would have been, I would have, he just wasn't enough. He wasn't enough to get that chance. He needed to be like special, and he wasn't, but he wasn't bad. Jim in Janesville says, I was wondering about your thoughts on the brutal opening schedule for the Kings. They are playing 3 of the top teams in the West in 5 days. Where do you play Forsberg? It's hard to predict what will happen and what to expect. I understand it's just the start of the season, but how do you think people will overreact to poor results? I believe the Kings will compete, but boy, what a tough start. On a lighter note, does anyone notice any facial hair on refs? I remember the grand mustache on Bill McCreary and can't recall any other on-ice officials having a beard or anything. I wonder if it's a league provision. Hockey at last, he says, and that was Jim in Janesville. That is a funny point. I never really thought about it, but when you said referee and facial hair, I did immediately think of Bill McCreary's mustache. But that's like the only guy I can remember as far as a referee or a linesman having facial hair. So I don't think there's a rule. Maybe it's something that whoever the head of officials is, maybe they know he doesn't like it or he wants, I don't know. As far as I know, there's no rule. Now I remember the New York Yankees for a very long time had a no facial hair rule. I think they have relaxed that recently. And as far as hockey goes, Hall of Fame general manager Lou Lamoriello always had a no facial hair policy for his teams. He was most recently with the New York Islanders. Now he's gone and they can grow beards or mustaches or anything else they want. But as far as the start to the season, yes, it's going to be tough. Tuesday at home against the Avalanche, and then the very next night in Las Vegas against the Golden Knights. Those are 2 legit division champion caliber teams. I don't think anyone would be shocked if they met in the Western Conference Finals. Then 2 days later, you got Winnipeg, the defending President's Trophy winners on the road for Minnesota. You're home to Pittsburgh and Carolina. 2 of those 3 teams were in the playoffs last year. Then back on the road against 2 more playoff teams in St. Louis and Dallas. The end of the month does get a little bit easier. You got road games in Nashville, Chicago, and San Jose. None of those teams made the playoffs. Then you close out the month with a home game against the Red Wings, another non-playoff team from a year ago. But 7 of the 12 opponents in October were playoff teams last year. 8 of the 12 opponents will be away from home. So you asked, are people going to overreact if the Kings get off to a slow start? Well, probably, because that's what fans do. If the Kings come back from that initial trip, or if they're, around 500 after October, I don't know that anyone should hit any alarm bells at that point. It also will depend on how do they look. Are they losing 1-goal games? Are they losing shootout and overtime games? Or are they getting blown out? So it is a very tough stretch to start. Certainly, the Kings will need to be focused right out of the gate, and that might actually help them to know that it's going to be a tough road to start, and it's going to be on the road where obviously they were not that great a year ago. So I'm hoping to see a Kings team that is ready and raring to go. As for how they handle the goalies, I think it's pretty straightforward. Only one of those games over the first month, I believe, is a back-to-back game, and that's the opening 2 games. So I'm expecting Darcy Kemper to go at home against the Avalanche and Anton Forsberg to go on the road against Vegas. This comes from Scott in Simi Valley, who says, just wondering if you caught the Q&A with Ken Holland and Josh Schaefer this week on YouTube. Any thoughts? Thanks for all the great Kings coverage, Scott in Simi Valley, keeping it short and sweet. I did watch that. I didn't think there was anything too revealing that he expressed, and I didn't expect him to, frankly. About the only thing that I thought was of interest was he was asked about the latest in the Adrian Kempe contract talks. He said pretty much the same thing we've heard. Kempe wants to stay, the Kings want him to stay, and they're just about finding that middle ground now. I do think he's going to get signed. I don't know how long it's going to take. This is the first big contract for Ken Holland as Kings GM. Maybe he feels like he has to put up a bit of a fight because maybe this sets the tone for other contract negotiations going forward, that he's got to at least make it look like he's not getting pushed around or just accepting whatever the player wants. So we'll see. I do think it's going to get done, but I hope it's sooner rather than later. I will say I do like that while this event wasn't anything that was a major revelation, I do give the Kings credit and Ken Holland credit for doing things like this for the fans. I believe this was a season ticket holder event. Not every team does this kind of thing, and I think this is good. I think teams should make the general manager and even the head coach available to be questioned by the fans and the season ticket holders. So I do commend them for at least making this type of thing available for the fans. I also want to point out that a well-known emailer of this show was featured in that Q&A with Ken Holland. We will give you the details on that coming up a little bit later when that person has an email for us. All right. Why was Phoenix Copley claimed off waivers and Eric Portillo was not? That's a question we'll answer next on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer right now. New customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits however you'd like to bet. Player props, building a same-game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. It makes every game more exciting, whether you're watching your team or just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup. It's quick, easy, and the best way to add a little more energy to your Sunday or Monday or Thursday. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. All right, our next email comes from Joel. He is in Phoenix, and he says, hello, Eddie. First time writing in. Since the Coyotes left for Utah, and since I decided not to be a fan of the Mammoth, I wanted to pick a new team, and that team is the LA Kings. I have family in LA, and I've even considered maybe moving there at some point. It's been fun learning about the team from your show. I also kind of like the fact that I was not picking a front-running team, but a team that has been good but still has a lot to prove. I have become a big fan of Quentin Byfield, and I think he's my favorite player on the team. I have a question, though, about Phoenix Copley getting claimed off waivers. Why did the Lightning claim him and not Eric Portillo? Was it because of his back injury? Was it because Copley is a lot cheaper, or is there something else I'm missing? Also, weird question, is Trevor Moore the greatest LA-born player? Thanks. And that was Joel in Phoenix. Phoenix Copley was picked because he was not waiver exempt. Eric Portillo is waiver exempt. So, in other words, if you don't know what that means, Eric Portillo did not have to go through waivers to be sent down to the Ontario Reign. Phoenix Copley did. So Phoenix was eligible to be selected. Eric Portillo was not. And how is that determined? Age is a part of it. Portillo's 25. Your number of contracts that you've signed is a factor in it. I think Portillo's on like his second contract. And also the number of NHL games you've played is a factor. Portillo's only played one. So he's waiver exempt, and Phoenix Copley was not. That's why nobody selected Eric Portillo. So you mentioned, is Trevor Moore the greatest LA-born player? Well, first off, he was born in Thousand Oaks, so that's not necessarily LA. It's certainly Southern California. So maybe the question should be, is Trevor Moore the greatest Southern California-born player? And to that, I would have to say no. I think you would probably have to go with Jason Robertson of the Dallas Stars. He was born in Arcadia. Thatcher Demko, if you want to say Southern California, he's the goaltender for the Vancouver Canucks. He was born in San Diego. So it would probably be one of those two guys. If you wanted to include San Diego as Southern California, I assume you would. As far as the highest scoring California-born player, that would be Austin Matthews, but he was born in Northern California. Southern California, that's Jason Zucker. I think he's with the Buffalo Sabres still. He's kind of kicked around for a while. He's the highest Southern California-born player in the NHL, highest scoring. But he's not the greatest player. That's just because he's played longer than Jason Robertson. So I would have to say Jason Robertson is the greatest Southern California-born player. But I would say Trevor Moore's probably top 5 on that list. We have this from Renee in Rancho Cucamonga. He or she said, just wanted to say thanks for the show and what you do during the offseason too. I'm excited about the new season and not just the Kings, but we go to Reign games often as well. Seems like the Reign are a young team with a lot of Kings prospects, which is kind of exciting. I know you said that Liam Greentree was sent back to his junior team. I know you also said that maybe there was a chance he could go to the AHL if there was a rule change that was going into effect next season, but they might implement it this season. Could that still happen or not? Also, will you be giving us regular reports on the Reign as well? And that was Renee in Rancho Cucamonga. I have not heard any kind of an update on that rule change, which you mentioned. It's going into effect next season. They were thinking about trying to fast track it for this season. That has not happened, which is why Liam Greentree is now on his junior team. And with the junior season now underway and with the AHL season coming up soon, my guess is they're not going to do it once the season starts. So unfortunately, it does not look like you will be seeing Liam Greentree in an Ontario Reign uniform this season. Obviously, this show is Locked On LA Kings, so we are going to be focused predominantly on the Kings. However, we will sprinkle in some Ontario Reign news from time to time, let you know how the team's doing, how certain players are doing. We did have Coach Andrew Lord on the show in the offseason, and frankly, he was awesome, and I think he would definitely be interested in coming back on the show at some point during the season. Paige Kaperstan, who works for the Reign on their broadcast crew, has been a guest. We could certainly have her back as well. And the Reign just hired a new radio broadcaster. His name is Cam McGuire. I've already reached out to him to say congrats on the job, and we'd love to have him on the show sometime. He replied saying he'd love to do it. So we also have our Reign fan correspondent, Don, who's going to be emailing the show from time to time with reports on the team. He goes to all the Reign games, and he will be filing some reports, like more specific kind of scouting report things on players, how they're doing. So we will mix in enough Reign coverage to keep everybody informed. But of course, this is always going to be an LA Kings heavy show, but we'll keep you updated. This comes from just another hockey dad in parts unknown. He says, skating is a little overrated, you say. Have you seen Matthew Schaefer backcheck highlight against the Flyers? His hockey sense didn't make it a highlight. His skating did, as did someone who grew up playing hockey, yes, in California, and has put his now 12-year-old son through the Little Kings programs, local club camps, personal coaches, up through a local travel team. I beg to differ. Also, compare the Schaefer highlight to Liam Greentree's back-checking on Vegas' only goal the other night. I'm pretty sure they both have great hockey sense. That was from just another hockey dad in parts unknown. Well, if I remember correctly, what he is referring to was me talking about Liam Greentree and him not being considered a great skater. I mentioned that I don't believe you have to be a great skater to be a great player. And I pointed out Luc Robitaille is a great example of that. He was never considered a great skater, and he's in the Hockey Hall of Fame. So does being a great skater help you be a great player? It can. Is being a great skater a requirement for being a great player? No. And if I had a choice between having a guy who was an okay skater who had great hockey sense or a guy who was a great skater and had limited hockey sense, I'm taking the guy with the great hockey sense every time because he will find a way to be effective. The guy who's a great skater, if he can't use his skating ability or he's not in the right place at the right time, I mean, it's great to be able to go from point A to point B quickly, but it doesn't make you a good hockey player. Of course, if you have both, if you have great skating ability and great hockey sense, then you're Bobby Orr, you're Wayne Gretzky or somebody like that. But all my point is that any concern about Liam Greentree not being a great skater and so that how will prevent him from being a great player, I don't buy that personally. But of course, he could work on it too and get a little bit better. But I mean, I would say Andrei Kuzmenko might be a little bit of an example of that. Now, he's very slow going from point A to point B. He's never going to back check like Matthew Schaefer you talked about and dive and knock a puck off a guy's stick to stop a scoring chance. But he's also very crafty and shifty and quick, turning and stopping and starting. So I don't know if he'd be considered a great skater or not. Certainly he's not a fast guy, but pretty nifty on his skates. So there's multiple ways to get it done, I guess is probably the point I was trying to make. Ed and Brea is in midseason form. We will tell you about that next on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. So now that the hockey season is approaching, very close, I know because I've looked at the numbers, the downloads and the watches and the listens for the podcast and the YouTube show are up, and that makes sense because there are a group of supporters of this show, Kings fans, who kind of check out during the off season. Maybe they're into baseball, whatever, and then they start once the season starts to come around, they start to come back. So, and that's fine. And if you're one of those fans, welcome back to the show. If you're new to the show, we have a regular emailer named Ed in Brea, and he has become a unique part of the show. So he has sent an email here, and it's classic Ed in Brea. He says, I was at the Kings GM Ken Holland Q&A this week with Kings radio announcer Josh Schaefer. I did ask him a question. I was very nervous, but I got my question out. I asked him about the Anton Forsberg signing, if he thinks we need to have two reliable goalies to win. He said we need two goalies along with faith in our AHL goalies, now with Portillo, the next guy, with Copley being claimed. My opinion, Kemper should not start more than 55 games, so he won't be tired out because he is older now. Forsberg should get the rest. With Copley claimed, I expect the Kings may get another goalie for the Reign since Portillo and Seville are the goalies. So we need depth in the AHL if Portillo gets called up. As the season opener is coming soon, my projections, since everyone is doing them, is I have the Kings finishing fourth in the Pacific Division with about 85 points, missing the playoffs in Andrei Kopitar's final season. I think this Kings team takes a step back this season. Vegas will finish first. The Quacks of Anaheim finish second and are favored to win the Stanley Cup, with Lucas Dostal winning the Vezina and the Conn Smythe Trophy. Third is Edmonton, who will be the final team to make the playoffs, as three teams will come from the Pacific Division. So I am not confident, very nervous about the season starting. I will enjoy watching Kopitar's final season since he is now a guaranteed Hockey Hall of Famer and LA Kings great. Keep up the good work. Go Kings go. Ed in Brea. So I said earlier, I watched the Ken Holland Q&A video, and not only did I hear Ed in Brea's question, they showed Ed on camera for his question. He was the only fan that asked the question that they put him on camera for. So if you want to see what Ed in Brea looks like, go to the LA Kings YouTube page, click on the live Q&A with GM Ken Holland. 35 minutes, 45 seconds, you will see and hear Ed asking his question. And I have to say, I am shocked that Ed in Brea would be pessimistic about this Kings season. If you are new to the show, he thinks the Kings will lose just about every game. He's already predicted. Part of his email, which I didn't read, was also, I think he said they're going to lose their first 4 games or something like that. So Ed, the Kings have had over the last 4 seasons 105, 99, 104, and 99 points. You think they're going to drop to, what is it, 85 points, you said, this year? Why? They're going to drop 20 points because Vladislav Gavrikov left. The Toronto Maple Leafs aren't going to drop 20 points with Mitch Marner leaving. We're not even talking about, a full season of Andrei Kuzmenko and some of the additions the Kings have made. That's pretty shocking. It's pretty shocking. Hot take from Ed in Brea. Now, I've said I don't think the Kings will have 105 points. And I know I did a Pacific Division Roundtable show, and they asked an over-under, and it was like, I think the odds makers have the Kings at 98.5 points. And I think that's about right. I think the Kings will be around 98, 99 points. So, no, I don't see them dropping that far at all, unless there are just horrific injuries. And I think the Kings absolutely will be in the top 3, and they will be in the playoffs again. So, I don't understand this Ducks fear or whatever it is that Ed has. The Ducks are not favored to win the Stanley Cup, Ed. You are literally the only one saying that. There is no one else that's saying that. So think about that. But here's the thing that really puzzles me about Ed in Brea. If you've watched the show, or if you listen to the show, My wife is a diehard Los Angeles Chargers fan. I am married into season tickets. We go to the games. I enjoy watching the games. I cheer for the team. I hope they do well. I'd love to see him win a Super Bowl so my poor suffering wife can have that amazing moment. Ed is also a Chargers fan, and he always includes some Chargers propaganda in his emails. I don't read them to you because what do you care about that? But here's the crazy thing about Ed. He's always pessimistic about the Kings, but he is always optimistic about the Chargers. And I don't get it because they're kind of the same team, except the Kings have actually won championships. Like right now, if you look at the Chargers and the Kings, they're a team that's good and they make the playoffs and they're having a tough time having postseason success. They're both the same team, but yet Ed says the Kings aren't making the playoffs, but the Chargers are going to win the Super Bowl. It doesn't make any sense. Like they're pretty much the same team, except one team's actually won something before and the other team hasn't. So I don't understand. I don't get it. I don't understand. But Ed, I would say don't change, but I know you're not going to anyway. So anyway, Ed and Brea already in midseason form. He's guaranteeing Kings losses, and he's very pessimistic on the team. All right. I do want to give you a rundown of what's coming up over the next couple of days. Obviously, very excited that the season is about to get started. I do want to say, obviously, thank you to everyone who took the time to email. The show is not possible without your participation. All right. The Kings' final preseason game is this Saturday, 1 p.m. Pacific time against the Ducks, Crypto.com Arena. I will be out there, and I will be hanging around afterwards at the season ticket holder Fan Fest. So if you're going to be out there, if you want to meet up at the game, if you want to meet up at the Fan Fest, let me know, email, social media, reach out. I will be out there. We are going to have a weekend show. It's going to recap that final preseason game. Next week on Monday, we'll have a Pacific Division preview episode. Ed gave you his predictions. I will give you mine. And then we are going to have an interview with longtime LA Kings TV analyst Jim Fox. Going to talk to him Monday night. It will be available for you Tuesday morning. Check it out, listen to it, enjoy it. Maybe on your drive into Crypto.com Arena. Make sure you check out Jim Fox on this show talking about the LA Kings season opener and the upcoming season. Excited about it. We're so happy that Kings hockey is officially going to be back very, very soon. And we're going to be here covering all season long on Locked on LA Kings. I hope you will join us as well. If you would like to get an email to the show for any reason, fan feedback show or anything else, lockedoneddie@gmail.com. EDDIE is the email address. We always love you to leave your comments in the comment section if you're watching on YouTube. Stay interactive with the show on social media, X, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. We're at Locked on LA Kings. And if you're interested in some exclusive Kings coverage, send me an email, lakingsextra@gmail.com. We'll give you all the information on that. I'm Eddie Garcia. Thank you for listening and watching Locked on LA Kings, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day. Have a great rest of your day. We'll talk to you next time. And as always, go Kings, go.